Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to welcome you to the 51st AGM of the Institution of Environmental Sciences, held online again this year so we can make it as inclusive as possible. This is set up as a webinar, so please type any questions you have in the Q&A box for any of the speakers to address in the spaces we have for questions, which will come later on. My job this afternoon is to reflect just a little on the external environment and the context in which all of you, the members of IES, are doing your work. Adam, as CEO, will add some things about the achievements of 2023 and then say a little bit about IES's priorities for the coming year. And then Ian, as Treasurer, will report back to you on our finances. Voting takes place entirely online through the members area. Adam will be closing the voting during the Treasurer's update. So you have about 10 more minutes to get your vote in if you haven't done so already. And you just log into the members area and click on the button that says vote in the 2024 AGM. So please do that if you haven't already. And I'll announce the results of these elections at the end of the AGM. This is my last AGM before I hand over the chair. It's gone incredibly quickly. I've hugely enjoyed my 3 years as chair and 3 years as vice chair before that, particularly because I've been fortunate enough to work with a great group of council members elected by yourselves, the membership, and also the absolutely stellar staff team at IES, whose output and skills never cease to amaze me. IES is on you'll see with the reports, on an ever upwards trajectory, and I'll be leaving you in very good hands, of which a bit more later. And I'm also confident that our efforts to improve diversity in the IES, which is one of the things I've been very keen on trying to help to advance, that those efforts I feel are bearing fruit, and we will continue to learn and develop on that front. That's always been a very important agenda for me. So I'm just very briefly going to highlight 3 areas where I feel that IES has risen particularly capably to the external agenda as I've experienced it. I guess the first and most obvious on those is on the water agenda. It kind of escaped few people's attention that public expectations of how we look after our water environment have risen greatly in the last few years, at exactly the same time as we've all become aware of serious shortcomings in that care. So IES's merger with the Foundation for Water Research could not have come at a better time, because I feel it enables us to support our members, particularly those working on water, but all of those with an interdisciplinary interest somewhere in water, with more in-depth research and insights, and crucially, more community activity. That is the aim of what we're doing with the Foundation for Water Research Legacy. So I'm truly proud of the work we're doing on water, and I am confident that we will play our part, and all the membership of IES will play their part in helping to turn this situation around. The second area I think I'd pick is on the climate agenda. The politics of net zero have been challenging lately. I think most of us have noticed that and started to be a little bit worried. And at the same time, I can see no evidence that public support for action on climate change is waning, and certainly some polls show exactly the opposite. So we have the relatively new IES Climate Action Community. This was born out of the way we brought members together for COP26, and with the emphasis very much on the action part of that. It is there to champion some of the crucial interdisciplinary working and getting things done on the ground. And I really do believe we have to keep reminding ourselves and our leaders that the crises of climate change, biodiversity, and pollution are all interlinked and must be tackled together. This is, for me, where IES members and IES as a supporting body really has a huge amount to offer. And then thirdly, on that theme of interlinkage of the crisis, I suppose I'd highlight the heightening public awareness of the relationship between climate and the loss of our natural world, but also the reality dawning of what the statutory biodiversity targets, those targets that the government set itself in the Environment Act of 2021, the dawning reality of what those really mean, and the drive we are going to need to make to deliver them. And there are so many levels on which we need to act there, but not least at a local level, where we hope that, for instance, the local nature recovery strategies will play a part and not, as some fear, gather dust on a shelf. So IES recently brought together a range of experts under the banner of our new EPIC community, Environmental Policy and Implementation Community, again with the emphasis on implementation, to consider some of those practicalities, how this works on the ground. And you can read the conclusions on our website. So this is just one of the ways we're informing and accelerating local action. So just with those three things, I hope that gives you a little bit of a flavour of how IES is working to help our members engage with and influence just three aspects of the environmental agenda as I see it today. And there are many more ways, of course, where we engage and act. So I really want to thank everyone I've worked with these 6 years, the council members, the staff team, and all the members I've been fortunate enough to meet for what for me has been an inspiring professional experience and a very warm, supportive personal environment as well. That counts for a great deal. I feel that the IES network is honestly second to none, and I look forward to remaining part of it. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Adam, our CEO, for some reflection on 2023 and a little bit about plans for 2024. Adam.
Thanks, Julie. It's my role at the AGM to reflect on the previous calendar year and all the wonderful achievements of the organisation. Much of what I'll cover today is captured in more detail in the annual report, so I'd encourage you to have a look through that if you haven't already. Now, it always surprises me when I do the presentation for the annual report on AGM, how much we managed to achieve through a comparatively small staff team. And I'd really like to begin by paying tribute to my staff who work with dedication and expertise to achieve this volume and quality of outputs. But we're only able to do this through the fantastic contributions of our very engaged membership. The IS staff are really facilitators or project managers. The incredible amount of content we deliver is made possible by the over 400 individuals that volunteer for us in some capacity, whether that's giving a webinar, speaking at a conference, writing a journal article, or peer reviewing membership or chartership applications. And I quite like this infographic because it really reinforces the exceptional value of IAS membership. Full membership is £138 a year. So looking at the number of events we run, that works out as roughly £1 an event. And I think you'd be very hard pressed to find such low cost CPD through any other organisation or means. A big theme, in fact, the main theme for 2023 was around horizon scanning and foresight. The year before we write a new strategy, the IS always undertakes a horizon scanning exercise. And the idea is that we do that scan of the external environment that should inform the writing of the strategy. And anyone who's been involved in strategic planning knows that an essential component is ensuring that an organisation is outward facing and aligned with what's going on externally. I remember being sat talking with the senior management team in 2022 about how we might run our horizon scanning the next year. And the idea was floated that we should make it a year-long theme. It was one of those special moments you get within an organisation where the genesis of an idea just snowballs. And the project ended up probably being the largest horizon and foresight project of this kind undertaken in the sector. To use an environmental metaphor, great oaks from little acorns grow. The project kicked off with the widest lens and narrowed down throughout the year, starting off looking at mega trends affecting the whole sector, then moving on to emerging science, the regulatory landscape, the workforce, and the job, and concluded with a look at what all those previous sections might mean for the future. The project provided a really interesting narrative arc for the year, and it was one of my personal highlights to chair one of the concluding discussions. And you can see from this slide the incredible number of outputs from the project. More than 30 stakeholder organisations were engaged with these activities, from government departments and major environmental NGOs to academics and funding organisations. And these stakeholders received updates and fed directly into the research. And the final project had more than 80 contributors from across the environmental sciences who represent a range of interdisciplinary perspectives on how the future might look for the sector. If you haven't had a chance to download the final report or summary or rewatch any of the video outputs, I would urge you to do so from our website. As Julie mentioned earlier, in 2022, the IS merged with the Foundation for Water Research, which opens up a deeper engagement for the IS in the water sector and builds on our existing strength in air and land. And this new strand of work means that the IS now has a truly holistic approach to environmental challenges. In 2023, we launched 3 technical panels to support the work of the FWR community, the names of which are on the slide there. And having got the governance and technical input in place, we'll really start reaping the benefits of this in 2024. 2023 also saw a second merger with Environmental Protection UK. This was a logical marriage due to the long-standing involvement of some EP UK members in IS and IAQM, and the IS's desire to have an increased focus on effective environmental policy implementation. EPIC has a long and proud history, tracing its roots back to the foundation of the Coal Smoke Abatement Society, which was set up in 1898, making it one of the world's oldest environmental NGOs. I was pleased that the IES could offer a home to continue its legacy. EP UK became the new Environmental Policy Implementation Community, or EPIC, within the IS family of communities. And now ambitious environmental goals rely on strong implementation to make them a reality. Policymakers cannot overlook the importance of delivery. And with several critical policies emerging in recent years at the national and global level, implementation is about to become the environmental challenge of the next decade. And it was in that context that EPIC was founded, and we hope will play a key role in the policy implementation landscape. To support this work, we hired an additional member of the IS policy team with a focus on local delivery. And the launch event for the new community took place in February this year at the Guildhall in London. Those 2 mergers leave the IS in a strong position. They have both become new communities within a growing list of IS communities. And communities are the main tool for member engagement that we use, ensuring that we remain a member-driven organisation and close to our members' technical needs. Other highlights from our communities not mentioned elsewhere in my talk include the establishment of an early careers network for land condition specialists and the year-long Turning the Tide Systems Thinking for a Sustainable Ocean project, which was the first major output from our marine and coastal community. And we were pleased to see it receive endorsement for the UN Ocean Decade. In 2023, there was another strong set of journals, beginning the year with What Plan for Energy, moving on to Unearthing Global Megatrends in Land Condition, which was very much tied in and a complement to our horizon scanning work. The first major output from our Environmental Justice Network, a journal around seeking natural justice. And we concluded the year with Watertight Solutions, which showcased our initial forays into creating solutions for the water sector. I've highlighted a few publications on this slide to draw your attention to. In March, we published a thought piece from our EIA community exploring the challenges facing EIA professionals and outlining recommendations for how EIA can be utilised as a tool to support better design. The report was a culmination of 5 dedicated discussion meetings and provided a springboard for conversations with a number of other organisations and paved the way for subsequent EIA community events, such as the collaborative event with the Institute of Civil Engineers. In August, we published, it's actually got the wrong name on there, that's a hangover from last year's slides. The name of that publication was Progressing or Regressing, the Future of Environmental Science on the New UK Government. And the report undertook a gap analysis, assessing how much progress had been made towards replacing EU environmental governance systems with UK equivalents, which was a continuation of a long run of outputs since 2016, looking at the impact of Brexit on the sector. In December, we published our adversarial to integrated, how to make environmental consenting a team sport report, which championed how working together as a single team with a shared vision can lead to ambitious action realised in a way that maximises social, economic and environmental benefits. In 2023, we ran 63 online events on a diverse set of topics ranging from PFAS to sustainable aviation. And our online events continue to be a focus for the team, as we know how valuable these are as a source of CPD for members. In 2023, we added a new Ies member webinar series where members highlight some of their projects and experiences, giving younger members an insight into what a typical day looks like for a professional working in various specialisms. Most of our online webinars are posted to our YouTube channel for members to catch up with at a later date. This year's Burnwood lecture took place in November at the Institute of Physics. The thought-provoking lecture was given by Professor Robert Costanza and focused on societal addiction to growth. It was followed by an expert panel, including Dimitri Zengelis and Mark Everard, giving their views on the lecture. We also ran our usual set of conferences, including Routes to Clean Air and Land Conditions Symposium, where we were pleased to see a return to pre-COVID levels of in-person attendance. We also expanded the IS training through rolling out new policy training and training on ethics, which were well received by members and non-members. We held policy training sessions on land and nature, climate, environmental systems and water. Policy training is delivered by our policy lead, Joseph Lewis, and the ethics training by myself. Dates are already confirmed for each of these sessions in 2024, with more information on those available on our events page, and I'd urge you to sign up. Moving on to our plans for the coming year. In July, we'll be launching our new strategy for the next 3-year period. And a central strand of that strategy is that we felt that our communities are well established, but what we wanted as a key focus for the next strategic period was looking at how we can promote cross-disciplinary and interdisciplinary work between those communities. There's never a clean break between strategies. Why would there be? If something is a good idea, you shouldn't wait until a set date to start initiating it. So we began working on this already. And our first major effort in this area is our new conference called Dialogue Between Disciplines later this month. The IES is uniquely placed to launch this kind of initiative, thanks to the depth of our members' expertise and the breadth of our work across environmental sciences. IES members have deep expertise in areas such as air quality, land condition, and water. These operate as distinct areas within the IES to our communities and sister organisations. However, environmental issues don't sit in neat boxes. Each specialism interacts with each other, and they often use different terminology, assessments, methodologies, approaches, and that can lead to siloed thinking and difficulties when assessments are brought together through processes such as SEA and EIA, and can lead to suboptimal environmental outcomes. So this conference is all about unlocking multifunctional solutions that are very dependent on effective interdisciplinary working, knowledge sharing, application of systems thinking approaches. I'm excited to announce that we had confirmation this morning that Catherine Ross, Chief Scientist of the Scottish Government, will be giving the keynote speech. And it's not too late to book tickets, and I urge members to do so and participate in what should be a fascinating day's worth of discussions. Other plans for 2024, you'll see from the slide that we have our usual array of conferences and publications. Some publications that we launched throughout the year include publications from EP UK and FWR. With the merger with both organisations, we inherited quite big publication archives, and we're currently in the process of updating these and we'll be releasing updated versions throughout the year. Probably what I'm most excited about in 2024 is that in August, and I've got my fingers crossed because we all know what digital transformation projects are like, but hopefully in August, the IS will be launching new branding and a new website. The branding project has been completed, and we're working behind the scenes to roll this out across our publications, website and marketing assets. The IS is one of the fastest growing and innovative professional bodies in the world, and it's well overdue that we have a brand and website that reflects this to the fullest extent. And the new website I'm really very excited about, and because it will provide a step change in how we engage with our members and will unleash a myriad of new member benefits and targeted content. We'll also be completing our work on the new IAQM competency framework and beginning work on one for land condition. And this, again, forms a key strand in the new strategy. So look out for more information on that when the strategy is released in July. Finally, I would like to pay tribute to our retiring chair, Julie Hill. It's been an interesting 3 years with the IS, having to navigate the choppy waters of a second year of COVID lockdown, the cost of living crisis, and changes to our staff team and governance structure. But it was through Julie's leadership that we navigated these waters and came out the other side a much stronger and more resilient organisation. Her qualities as a chair are too numerous to list, but I would like to highlight her ability to get to the strategic crux of any issue, to build strong relationships, which is so key in chairing an organisation. Her strengths as a public speaker, meaning that she's been a great ambassador for the institution, and her fantastic links across the sector, which have opened many doors for the organisation and fostered valuable collaborative partnerships for us. On a personal note, I've also highly valued her advice and her willingness to quickly answer WhatsApp messages for myself on a very wide range of topics, sometimes at anti-social hours, which has been hugely valuable to me in my role as a CEO over the past 3 years. And given this impressive record, I am delighted to announce that the IS Council broke with tradition and decided to elect Julie as president of the IES, meaning that for the next 2 years, Julie will continue playing that ambassadorial role for the organisation, and her term of president will begin immediately after the AGM. So I'm afraid, Julie, that might not be the end of those WhatsApp messages. I'm now going to pass over to our treasurer, Ian Byrne, to talk through the finances. Ian.
Thank you, Adam.
Ian, I'm afraid you're on mute.
No, yeah, it's okay. I spotted I was on mute, but as always, it's then finding the right button. And I'm afraid the weather hasn't improved since last year either. If we can have the first slide, please. This is an extract from the income and expenditure account. As most of you probably know, IAS is incorporated as a company, but also as a charity, and therefore it reports following something called SORP, which is the Statement of Recommended Practice, which in the way of these things is not recommended practice, but is mandatory. But that's neither here nor there. So effectively, how we display the results for the year is determined very much by what the charity's rules say. Essentially, though, what we're showing here is that we had revenue within the year of just over £500,000, and expenditure this year from recurring activities was actually slightly more. This is partly because we've been investing in the various activities that Adam has been describing, including preparatory work for the rebranding website and update of some of the materials that we inherited from the FWR, quite apart from any additional activities that have been involved around the EPIC merger. So that's where we record our everyday income and expenditure, which is in the unrestricted funds column. You will observe there is also a figure of 650,000 sitting in the restricted funds. This is the first tranche of the substantial donation that we'll be getting from FWR in order to maintain activities in and around matters to do with water. And that's a new item this year, that we for the first time had a significant amount of restricted fund income. Within last year, there was very little expenditure relating to it. That will, of course, change. But the intention is that by and large, the activities on water will be funded from the revenues that we earn from investments on the money that they're providing to us, i.e. that we're not going to sort of push it away over time. The expenditure, and I have to say I always find the SORP expenditure patterns completely unintelligible. Basically, pretty well everything we do can be attributed to being charitable activities, except when it comes to raising funds, which for some reason is not regarded as being charitable. As we are not a charity that goes out and knocks on doors seeking funding, but we could raise revenue through our membership, the amount shown as raising funds is actually just negligible. And so then everything de facto comes under the charitable activities. Shall we move to the next slide? It might be prettier. So as we see, we have continued a pattern of growing both income and expenditure in order to provide services to the membership. The growth in income was perhaps a little bit lower than over some of the previous years. That's actually also reflected by membership growth, because we have taken a deliberate decision not to raise membership fees in line with cost of living or in line with general inflation, recognizing that there is a cost of living crisis. Not that I like the term. We have made sure that we have kept our membership as affordable as possible. But obviously some of the expenses have gone up rather more in line. As I said, that's also due to investments for the new website. So we will be back in balance, I think, according to the budget on the current year. Next slide, please. Membership is what drives the organisation. It's a bit difficult to read at the bottom the different types, but essentially those are the total membership. And as you can see, we've just reached 5,000 in 2023, and membership continues to grow, and that we continue to have a balance between paid for members and those who are perhaps still at university or in education who are not paid for members. But we managed to do a reasonably good conversion of the students into full members afterwards. Next slide. In terms of the expenditure, as I said a moment ago, for the accounts purposes, the main figures are actually just showing as being charitable or raising funds. However, there is in the notes of the accounts a breakdown, and this is taken from that, showing in rather more detail what we actually spend the money on within so-called charitable expenditure. And as you can see, it's substantially on staff costs, which is right and proper, because they're the people who are providing the services. They're the people who are writing or at least coordinating the articles for the journals, looking at the policy outputs, the events, the webinars, the overall analysis. And that in common with quite a lot of other charities, we're very good at keeping overhead costs, such as the cost of maintaining a very small office in what used to be an unfashionable part of London, but now it's actually an increasingly fashionable part of London, I think. But that's very low. You'll see on the bar that the premises costs are actually the second blue lump of the pie at no more than around 5% of total expenditure. There are obviously costs associated with publications and with general miscellaneous administration, sort of maintaining the institution on an even keel. But essentially, most of the money goes in order to support the staff or to pay for the staff and then provide the services that we will benefit from. Next slide. And how does this relate to the balance sheet? Well, the balance sheet basically shows that we have a good reserve position now, and it's been much improved by the influx of funding that we're not going to be drawing down, particularly from the FWR. There has been a restatement this year. As part of the process of growing our income, we reached a situation where we had to have a full audit rather than an independent examination. And although it was provided by the same company, H.W. Fisher, they decided they wanted to change the accounting policy so that we now defer a proportion of the income that's received from membership to match it over the period for which that membership runs. So effectively, that runs over the calendar year, whereas the accounts run to 30th of June each year. So the result being that we have now a lower level of unrestricted funds reported than we had previously done, and that's been restated. However, the blue bars, the light blue bars on the little chart we show there, show the trend in unrestricted funds on the original basis, which was what we effectively have to monitor in order to make sure we've got sufficient cash to continue operating the charity, the institution, on an ongoing basis. And that's actually still a perfectly adequate level. And then what was originally light green, but on my Zoom connection sort of turned into a grey bar, is the additional restricted funds that we have on the FWR monies in order to specifically focus on sort of water-based activities. We shouldn't worry about the fact there appears to be a lot more of that, because that's not immediately supported by membership income on a regular basis, whereas the other reserves, the general reserves, are. And I think, is that the last slide? It is indeed. Do we have any questions?
Thank you, Ian, very much indeed. And can I just take this opportunity to thank you for all the incredibly hard work you do on the IES finances. And as you've mentioned, it's been, I'm conscious it's been even more challenging for yourself and for Adam as well, given this change, the change we've had to make to the way the accounts have been constructed and approved.